remember how Western countries really broke their arm, patting themselves on the back about how we were so kind for taking in Ukrainians because their country was at war. Good for us. 2 years ago, these were the headlines that we could not get away from. This was about how awesome we are for helping Ukrainian refugees. This was from the Washington Post 2 years ago. Well, that warm welcome seems to be over for Ukrainians, and now they are all being sent right back, according to new draft rules signed into law by Zelensky just this week. Here are some of the more shocking changes. First off, all Ukrainians between the ages of 16 and 60 must now carry their military papers at all times. So if a police stops them and they don't have proof that they've registered for the draft, they're in deep doo-doo. If they don't have these papers, a police can forcibly take them into a conscription office, never to be seen again, presumably. Even, if you are already at war, one of the things that these new rules had promised was that the soldiers who have been there for now 2 years are going to have some rules about when they can go home. They don't have a tour like, I'll be there 6 months or something. They've been there, the ones that have survived, and they want to go home. They're tired. So the original document was expected to provide for the demobilization and maybe rotate in some new people. But at the last minute, they removed that from the bill. They say they're going to draft something separate to demilitarize those people, but I would not hold your breath. So think about it. We're supposed to care about them, right? Our media tells them we care about them. We don't, clearly. We just want them to keep dying and winning a war that we can congratulate ourselves about. No one cares about these Ukrainian soldiers except us here on Redacted. And so those of the soldiers that are there, unequipped and untrained, should go home, and peace talks should happen. But at the very least, they should go home. And Ukraine promised them that they would be going home, and now they're not. Can you even imagine? Can you imagine how that feels?
It's awful.
It's awful.
It's unbelievable. And so, they seek refuge in these other countries. Now they're being told by their...
No, we're talking about the men on the front lines now who have been waiting for instructions.
Oh, yeah.
They were promised that this bill would give them at least some kind of silver lining of when they can come home. They don't get that. Look how Western media lies about this. This is Reuters from today. Ukraine Zelensky signs new army draft to reinforce exhausted troops. Well, that's a lie, because it's not helping those exhausted troops. They have to stay there. That's it. They're
not being replaced. And normally you would go...
It's a trick.
Yeah, normally you would be shuffled in, shuffled out, right?
Yeah.
Shuffled in, shuffled out. They're not at all, and they've been stuck there. They know when they're going there to die. They're not coming home.
But the ones that are still there, that have survived, were promised with this bill that there would be rules for when they can come home. And Zelensky and his government at the last minute removed that. And that's an awful trick. That's a dirty game.
Someone said in the chat, Angela says, well done, Redacted, caring about the Ukrainian soldiers. We have from the beginning been saying that you're literally...
They have no business there.
NATO is sending them there to die.
Yeah.
They're wiping out an entire generation of young men right now because of this war.
No, we don't care about that. We care about putting them on the flags on their social media, right? We care about, and I just can't get over how different of an environment this was, because again, I remember we live here in Europe, that when the war began, there were moms chats and pleas from our school, bring in any blankets or extra clothes, car seats that you have. And everyone was so excited to help Ukrainian refugees. Take one into your house. Can you give them a ride? Can you help them with their paperwork? Well, now they're saying, hey, they're sending us back. We don't have documentation to stay here anymore, and we're going to be sent to die. No one's helping them. If we cared, we would say, no, wait, we took these people in. They're safe here. They're staying. They're not being sent back for a pointless war. We don't. Their friends and family are dying on the front lines because their leaders refuse to cede that territory that doesn't want to be Ukraine anyway. And so now look at all of these men who will be dragnet into this army to die untrained. So let's go back to some of the rules. Yeah, go ahead.
Aren't we in about 3 generations of men now?
Yeah, I know. I say one generation. But if you're talking that 16-year-olds have to carry these papers on them, right?
Yeah.
They'll be thrown in. And we know that many young people have already been grabbed and thrown in
They're not
anyway.
supposed to.
I know they're not supposed to, but they are.
They are.
Yeah. And all the way up until 60 years old. And we've seen the horrible videos of individuals with Down syndrome being thrown into this as well. I mean, it's just absolutely awful right now. Please stop it.
Right. Okay, let's go back to the rules. Now it puts into place university students must all do military training starting in 2025. Recruiters no longer have to find a person to draft them. Before, conscription notices had to be delivered in person. But now if they send it in the mail, they consider it delivered. You're drafted. And if you don't comply, they're coming for you. Failure to comply with the draft means big fines. Also, your driver's license will be revoked. A separate law lowers the age from 27 to 25 for mandatory conscription. And this is what's causing the most panic of all of those Ukrainians, that those of us outside of Ukraine, we took such good care of them. But now they're panicked because those services will totally dry up unless they register for military service. So that means Ukrainians who go to consulates abroad will be automatically registered to be drafted. So say you need to renew something or get some kind of service from the Ukrainian consulate and you are a refugee, let's say in Spain, well, you're not going to go back to that consulate because you know you'll be drafted and sent into the war. Now they're saying they're not going to do forced deportations, but we'll just see about that because Europe has been very wimpy, I'm going to say. European leaders have said, well, we don't think we're going to be sending those people back. But you don't know. I wouldn't trust a European leader as far as I could throw them. So that means that if you're one of those Ukrainians who was treated so nicely when you escaped in 2022, you're not anymore. If you go to a consulate for any reason, you'll be drafted. That's why scenes like this were happening in the last few days in the run-up of this law being passed. So what you're seeing here is a line to get into the Ukrainian consulate in Prague. So all of these people want to hurry up and get their services taken care of because they don't want to have to go back to the consulate for any reason at risk of being drafted. This is reportedly what the wait line looked like to get into the Ukrainian consulate in Warsaw.
Jeez. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad in Poland right now.
So think of how stressful this is for them. They're welcomed into Western countries. You know, they have all of this press. They're treated well. But now those same countries won't protect them from Zelensky's war, and they'll be sent back to leave their families and go to a war that could end today if Zelensky wanted it to. And are we going to help them now? Now that 2 years after we congratulated ourselves in the West for doing that? Apparently we're not. Our government is A-okay with these new draconian draft rules and them dying. We just want to send their government more money so that these men can go to their deaths. Here's one more awful change to this law. It removes the concept of partially fit for military service. So they can be drafting people with disabilities. They can be drafting people with one limb. Off you go. And if you were already declared unfit to serve by a medical exam, you're going to have to resubmit to that exam again. They say they've opened 10 new conscription offices so that they can re-examine anyone. So even if you thought, no, I'm safe, I have a medical exemption because I have a disease, I'm missing a limb, for whatever reason, not so fast. You're going to have to get that again. Now, we will see more things like this. Sputnik News reporter Ossie Kosak had posted videos online of Ukrainian soldier fighting with Down syndrome, and he was really abused in this video. I'm choosing not to show it to you because it's upsetting.
Not show it. It's awful.
It's not a video. I just took a still. You can seek this out if you want. But this is within the realm of possibility now. At least 10 new military recruitment offices were opened to catch these guys. So inevitably, we will see more videos like this one of a man being pulled off public transportation in Odessa earlier this year.
Can you imagine the fear? Like, you're on your way to work, you're on your way trying to earn a living. You leave the house. There's so many reports of these young men like leaving the house to go to work or just to go to the grocery store to get food for their family. And
I mean, that's what
thrown in the bus.
Protecting democracy looks like, though. You know, I mean, if you're going
Who's
to really protect democracy, I get
our
I guess
freedom,
that's
but
what you
not
have to do.
theirs.
It's awful.
Yeah.
It's awful.
No, none of this makes sense because Zelensky never makes sense. He said in January to a
Cocaine will
German,
do to you.
right? He said to a German broadcaster that they had almost 1 million troops and they were doing just fine. This was in January, a quote from Zelensky to German media. He says, besides, we have a workforce of about 30 million people. Even though I can't provide the exact number, there's some 6.5 to 7.5 million people have moved abroad. And again, I can't give you the accurate figure. So he said, we have almost 1 million troops and I have this 30 million to pull from. So I'm good. Well, I guess that's exactly what he's doing. Also, I wonder how he got that extra 200,000 people, because in February, before the conflict broke out, they said they only had 260,000. And in December, they said they had 600,000. So even though we know they're dying at a rapid rate, somehow they're growing. I don't know if it's maybe what's a Star Wars army? The
clones?
The Clone Wars,
right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
That's the only way these numbers make sense, or he's talking out of his ass.
What do you think?
Those are the only two options.
We know what he's talking about. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. The only silver lining here is that the new law does not seem to include forced conscription of women yet. Because we've been following this and we warned you that Ukrainian officials were warning that they thought that they would have to do this. Here's a video from earlier this year, from several months ago. Ukrainian Army Lieutenant Colonel Nikolov said that they would need total mobilization of the entire male and female population from the age of 18, even so far as forcing prisoners into the army, as if that would be the only way that Ukraine could win.
Сейчас главное не проиграть. Так вот, для того, чтобы не проиграть, необходимо не просто провести полимеризацию, необходимы драконовские методы. Как я это вижу, это тотальная мобилизация всего мужского и женского населения с 18 лет. Не обязательно это должна быть передовая, это может быть оборонные какие-то предприятия, это может быть тыл, логистика. Можно в какую-то другую оберку обернуть, там, резервисты и так далее. Но с 18 лет, включая женщин, необходимо привлечь заключенных для выполнения бойових задач.
Ув'язнених.
Так точно.
А яким чином це зробити? Це ж протирічить українському законодавству.
Идет война 10 лет. Неужели не научились делать зміну до законодавства?
Okay, so said that's against the law. And he's like, well, we've been at war for 10 years. We can change the law. That's exactly what they did.
Do the documents define what a woman is over there? Do they know what that is over there? Or?
Good point. Because we have seen those spoof videos where Ukrainian men dress as women to avoid conscription. But that's a joke so far. Again,
Also, sorry, but it's kind of an aside, but am I the only one that noticed that guy's sweatshirt was just like the symbolism on his sweatshirt? I won't say what it reminds me of, because we got in trouble for using that word one time, but it starts with N and ends in AZI. But it looked like his sweatshirt looked like it had I couldn't quite see it because it was so small, but it looked like it had a freaking SS symbol on his arm.
Yeah.
Just an aside. I know that's not important to what's going on here, but
yeah, that guy rhymes with Yahtzee, if you like that game, the dice game. My grandma liked Yahtzee. You're right. And when he was talking about the 10 years that Ukraine, he says this war has been going on for 10 years. Well, those Yahtzee players are the ones who've been waging that war for 10 years. So good observation. So I ask you, who will speak for the Ukrainians in this dragnet of a war? Who will tell them that their lives will not move back this line? Every time we talk about this, I think it's important to revisit the map. So here is the map. On June 1st, 2023, when we were told the counteroffensive started, they threw many lives at this red line in order to move it back to white to become Ukraine, even though the people in those regions voted and asked to become Russia because they were tired of being bombed and terrorized by Ukraine. This is a map of the war as of yesterday. It did not move. Ukraine has made no progress to regain that territory, nor should they. Again, Ukraine has been bombing those regions since 2014. The media wants us to pretend that we never knew that, but there's lots of reporting from 2014 if we care to go back and look. Here's a report that covers it from Sputnik News if you'd like to go over it, but a lot of Western sources have it too. So given that those regions asked Russia to help the terror to stop, and those regions voted to join Russia, Ukraine must stop sending men to their death to take that territory back. These men must be allowed to live out their lives in peace because, one, they don't deserve it. Ukraine didn't treat those people in the Donbass well, and they only want that land back because it's rich in uranium and other natural resources. And two, they won't succeed no matter how many men they throw at that line. So with all of that, U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson says, oh, no, we're still going to continue to support Ukraine with military aid. He's about to put a bill up for vote in Congress. The number was originally supposed to be $60 billion, but now he's saying he needs $95 billion in order to send aid to Ukraine, but that also includes aid for Israel. He says he needs to do that because he considers himself a wartime speaker. We talked about this earlier, but here's how he is presenting it. Ukraine needs the money, and I'm a leader of a war.
Look, we are in unprecedented times, okay? We're in dangerous times, as has been articulated here, around the world, and here at home. We need steady leadership. We need steady hands at the wheel. Look, I regard myself as a wartime speaker. I mean, in a literal sense, we are. I knew that when I took the gavel. I didn't anticipate that this would be an easy path. Former Speaker Newt Gingrich posted a couple days ago on his social media that this is the hardest challenge that's faced a speaker probably in the history of the country, in the moment that we're in right now. He said arguably maybe comparable to the Civil War, but maybe worse.
Okay. The extreme irony is that he won't put, if he thinks he's a wartime speaker, he should put these wars up for a vote to Congress. We should get a vote then. Don't call yourself a wartime speaker and keep sneaking wars in, sliding them, putting them under your plate like your broccoli. That's wrong. So it kills me that he says that, and they insult us by not voting for war, because at least then we could see them doing this out in plain sight. But he's not a wartime speaker because he refuses to put these for a vote. So that makes me bonkers. Do you join me in that sentiment? How do you feel? Let us know in the chat below.
I really hoped you enjoyed watching this video. You know, YouTube thinks that you'll actually like this next video right here. It's personalized based on your own viewing habits. So if you watch the video, please leave a comment. Let us know what you think about it. And we will see you next time, everyone.